Welcome back to the session second and day 2 of the workshop which we are having for intellectual property rights. So let us start with the second day session of this particular workshop. In this session, we are going to briefly talk about the only remaining type of intellectual property right. Then we are going to touch base on the various life cycles of the intellectual property right, the types that we have seen. What are the differences between the life cycle of these particular different types of IPR? And then we are going to move on to a ladder and see touch base to the introduction of the patents. The contents for this particular session is, like I just briefly mentioned, we are going to see the details about the traditional knowledge type of IPR. Then we are going to see the life cycle of the IPR, various types. We are going to understand whether the IPR is a territorial right or IPR as a territorial rights. And we are going to also see why there is a requirement of filing intellectual property right in countries outside India, whether it is worth for filing IPR outside India. We are going to see, we are going to get introduced to the intellectual property right offices in India and how is the structure in those offices, administrative offices. We are going to see the hierarchy of the patent office in India, and then in the last couple of minutes we are going to get introduced to the patents, which will be the major focus of our session 3, that is the next session. So before going into details, let us quickly revise what we discussed yesterday, what we understood yesterday, the different types of IPR, and then we'll move on to it so that we are all on the same page. So the first and most important type of IPR that we discussed was copyright. So you all must be remembering what we discussed, that copyright is generally given for three basic type of work, which is referred to as literary work, artistic work, and cinematographic work. So the best example to remember the copyright is any particular work which is artistic in nature, which is literary in nature, or which is in having some audio, video, or animation associated with it, all can be categorized under copyrights. The second type of IPR that we saw was trademark. As we discussed, the name trademark indicates that it is a mark which represents a particular trade or which is associated with a particular trade, and thus it is referred to as trademark. The examples of that we discussed, one was Apple, second was Nike, the brand, and the associated logos to it. We also discussed various types of trademark. The trademark can be of various types. One is a color mark, other is a light mark, third is a sound mark, fourth is a smell mark, word mark, logo, and these are all different types of trademark. Third important type of IPR we saw was industrial designs, also referred to as design patents. The most key feature of this particular type of IPR is that this is only being granted or allowed to the aesthetic appearance of a product. The product has to be tangible in nature and it should have some aesthetic features which actually enables it to distinguish from the other features that are available in the different products. Fourth and most important type of IPR that we saw was patents, also referred to as utility patents. This patent is a type which actually is being given or allocated to inventions or innovations which are new in nature, which tries to solve some particular problem that is available in the existing literature, existing work, existing products, existing services, and thus patents are more highly valued and most concrete type of enforceable IPR that we have seen till now. Fourth type of IPR that we saw was layout design of IC circuits. In short, it is also referred to as IC layouts. These are basically given to the IC chips and the electronic, working or diagram of such particular circuitry. We also saw details about geographical indications, the indications which are associated with the geographical origin. For example, Nagpur oranges, Kolhapuri chappal, Jaipur shawl, then Kanjivaram silk, and then we have seen Darjeeling ka tea. These are all examples of geographical indications. Plant variety protection, we saw that this is a type of IPR which is generally given to the farmers or the breeders who actually come up with a totally new or substantially different type of plants or fruits that are sustainable in nature as compared to the conventional one. What are the examples of this? We saw yesterday the example of tomato, which is very famous in Thailand, and the new breed is much more sustainable and better as compared to the original parent one. I think the last type of IPR that we saw was trade secrets. And as we discussed, the examples of Coca-Cola and KFC, these are the secrets associated with a business which, if a particular competitor comes to know about, would hamper your business to an extent in terms of revenue as well as in terms of brand or a value associated thereof. Shall we move on to the next and most important type of IPR that was left out in our yesterday's discussion? This is referred to as traditional knowledge. As the name indicates, this is a type of IPR which is associated with your knowledge which is happening traditionally. What is the meaning of tradition? Tradition is something which is happening from ancestral time, from generation to generation. For example, our great 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 grandfather who has shared his knowledge to his children, and then these children transfer the knowledge to the future generation, and then till now, whatsoever generation has passed, the knowledge has come to you. So these are all knowledge associated with a person or associated with a community or associated with a country, and that is ancestrally available, and hence it is referred to as traditional knowledge. So now, why is the importance of this particular traditional knowledge? I would like to share this thing with an example that we all know turmeric, haldi, what we refer to as in Hindi and Marathi. We are using this particular turmeric from so many years that we don't even recall who was the first one to tell that turmeric is used for n number of things. For example, in your vegetables, for getting recovery from the wounds, not only from for humans but also for animals. And then turmeric can be used as an antiseptic or as a antifungal or antibacterial stuff as well. So these are all knowledge which are being transferred to us from the generation to generation, and it is referred to as ancestral knowledge. So it is very difficult to get a origin of that particular thing, but it is known in somebody's mind, or it was known from ancestor to ancestor. So what happened one day was like one person from United States was traveling to India, and he fortunately visited one of the villages in a, I think in north jurisdiction, maybe nearby Himalaya, and he saw that there was one animal which was wounded, and this family, the owner of those particular animals, they were treating that wound using haldi, turmeric, right? So this guy asked these people that why are you using turmeric? Why should you not go to a veterinary doctor and get a treatment there? So these people very gently said that firstly there is no doctor available nearby, and secondly we have seen the results of using turmeric from many years of usage, and these animals get recover faster as compared to any other medicine that they eat. This was shocking to this person from United States, and what happened was like he happened to be a kind of researcher in one of the very reputed pharmaceutical company. He went back and used this turmeric and tried to sell it, or try to make a kind of a kind of formulation using turmeric which can be sold in a particular tube, or let us say what we call it as cream tube. So this basically turmeric, which was not known to people in United States or any nearby jurisdiction, this person tried to claim right over that turmeric in those jurisdiction by filing a patent. One day, fortunately to us and unfortunately to this person, he tend to file, or he filed a patent application in India. And after seeing that application, the examiners and the controller at Indian Patent Office was in shock. They realized that this is the turmeric which they also, as per their ancestral knowledge, were using in their day-to-day life. Now just imagine if this person would have got her patent granted in India for turmeric. For using the turmeric at our household, we need to get a permission from this guy. Or this turmeric, which generally is like a very cheaper as compared to the foreign countries, would have been, we would have to buy this turmeric for, I don't know, maybe more than 1,000 or 5,000 rupees. This is the impact of traditional knowledge. So what happened was like on that day, our controller general, or the person who decides whether the patent is to be granted or not, they decided that we should have some ancestral knowledge database in our our system, which tries to save all the details which are available about the traditional knowledge or ancestrally known knowledge, so that tomorrow if such incident happens, we would be able to stop them not only in India but across the globe. And that was the time when traditional knowledge database TKDB, TKDL in other terms, was formed in India. Now this particular traditional knowledge include all the type of literatures which are associated with traditional knowledge in terms of Ayurveda, in terms of any different Vedas that are available till date, and the associated solutions and associated the plants and herbs and medicines and all those stuffs which are ancestrally known to a person from generation to generation, and this knowledge is referred to as traditional knowledge database. This traditional knowledge is a database repository at the Indian Patent Office, which, while any pharmaceutical related or any chemistry related invention comes, this traditional knowledge repository has to be referred by the examiner before the issuance of a patent, so that the mishap which happens with the concern of turmeric should not happen for any other part. This traditional knowledge in India is actually covering mainly 4 or 5 languages related art. One of them is Sanskrit, other is Urdu, Arabic, Persian, and Tamil. Because you would note that India has a variety and variability in the knowledge as well as the language that they speak. And there are many people like Persians and Arabic people who has ruled India in the past. So it is likely that the knowledge they brought with them or knowledge that they used that time were specifically written in those particular languages, and hence this TKDL knowledge is not restricted to a particular language, for example English or Hindi. It is a group of all these particular documents. Rather, whichever document speaks about any particular traditional knowledge is a part of traditional knowledge database according to India. Not only that, whenever such document in any language is shared with the Indian Patent Office, and if they see that there is a potential of having it in the traditional knowledge, these patent office people try to convert or translate them into five global languages which are very often used by people across the globe. So one of them is English, French, Spanish, German, and Japanese. These are the 5 major languages in which the knowledge which is being saved according to the traditional knowledge is converted to, so that not only India but across the globe, people having such kind of requirement for accessing the knowledge what is there in India and from ancestral thing, they can fetch this particular document in their respective language and use it. Few of the examples that I tried to cite here, which are related to traditional knowledge, one I discussed was turmeric, other is a neem. Neem, you would wonder that neem is such a kind of ancestrally known knowledge to us. Like for example, the branches or the limbs of neem are basically used as a toothbrush in India from so many years. Also, the neem leaves are used as pesticides and herbicides, which is a free of cost kind of pesticides and herbicides that we get in Indian market. And just imagine if somebody comes and tries to claim that this tree or this particular pesticide or herbicide that you're using, which is made up of neem, cannot be used without my permission. How hurtful and how illegal that would be from the perspective of a person in India, because we are knowing this from ancestral time that neem can be used for so many things, and if we are ourselves stopped from using that particular thing, it will be very difficult for people. And thus this traditional knowledge helps us as a human being as well as a country, as well as a kind of knowledge, traditional knowledge. They stop people from prohibiting usage of such well-known kind of traditional usage of those particular existing trees and plants. Basmati is one of the other example. The same story happened like turmeric with basmati as well. So a person in United States tried to claim a basmati rice, and when he filed a patent in India, people in India were shocked because they were using it from like so many years, and suddenly if they would have got a grant of patent, that US guy, they would have stopped him from using that particular thing. So this is the power of traditional knowledge. I hope this is clear to you. This is a very simpler one. Now, the best part of this traditional knowledge is that you don't have to even register it. You just have to go and update to the Indian Patent Office that this is the document that we have, and this has been used in any particular village for so many years, maybe for treating wound, maybe for enhancing the life of a person, etc. And you can just go and submit it there, and it will automatically form a part of the traditional knowledge. So that's the beauty of this traditional knowledge. Moving on, like I said, the most focus of this particular session today would be about the life cycle of the different types of IPR that we saw. So let us start with a very basic one. I will try to compare it with the real-time example, and then that would help you to understand in a greater detail that how exactly this particular life cycle of IPR works. So before going into this life cycle of a patent application, I would like to just discuss a very small scenario with you. It is also referred to as a life cycle, but you may not be calling it as life cycle, but I will call it as life cycle just for the sake of understanding. So whenever you want to have a driving license or you want to apply for a driving license, the first thing that you need to do is like you need to fill your details to it. You need to put all the details associated with it. For example, whether you can see or not, whether you are blind or not, what is your height, what is your age, what is your permanent address, and all these details have to be submitted in that document. It is has to be submitted at the RTO office, who is responsible for giving you the driving license. And once you submit this document, you get a temporary license, which is also called as temporary driving license, and used by you because you have applied for a driving license, but it is not yet approved because the RTO has to see whether your driving skills are up to the mark or not. Thus, this temporary driving license is a kind of temporary, not permanent kind of documentation that is given to you by the government RTO. And then within next 6 months, you have to come back to the RTO, give a driving test, and based on that, the RTO decide whether you can actually be eligible for getting a permanent driving license or not. Right? So this is a general life cycle of a particular driving license which is seen in India. I am sure that most of us, if not all, have been through this process, and who has a driving license would be pretty much be able to correlate what I am trying to refer here. So these are all called as various steps in the life cycle of a driving license. So here, similarly, this life cycle of a patent application and all other types of IPR, they are also on a similar line. Let's take an example of a patent application. The slide that you are seeing is actually a flow chart. We are referring it as a life cycle because all the life of the patent, be it granted or be it approved or not, they have to go through these steps, and that is why it is referred to as a life cycle.